Good morning. My name is Gary Ford. I'm a history teacher at Rome Free Academy. This is Friday, July 26, 2002. I'm going to be interviewing the Reverend George E. Barney, who was a member of the Big Red 1 Division that was involved in the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944, and the campaigns on in through France that followed. Thank you. Good morning, Reverend Barney.
Good morning.
Thank you for agreeing to help us with our class project on these oral histories.
It's a privilege to share what happened to me during World War II.
This is what our project is, and we can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you.
A question that I like to ask all the World War II veterans are their first memories of the war,
Yes.
whether it was Pearl Harbor or whether it was before Pearl Harbor, with the war in Europe or Asia. So what are your first memories of the Second World War?
At that time, I was 16 and I was in high school, and I remember Pearl Harbor, but not too much about it because I was kind of young. So it really wasn't too much of a memory, to think about Pearl Harbor. But later on, yes, I thought about it because, yeah.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the Army?
I was drafted, yes.
And what year was that, please?
It was October 8th, 1943.
And where did you go for basic training?
I went to Spartansburg, South Carolina.
What type of training did they give you there?
I have training for communications. Telephones, climb poles, hook up wires that I imagine they're supposed to be damaged during the war, and that's what I was in. But I completed everything but Morse code. I couldn't get a hold of that, so I didn't really complete the course.
Was that by your choice, that type of training, or the Army said this is what we need and this is what you'll do?
That's where they put me. I had no choice. In the Army, you don't have much choice.
That's why I asked the question, yes.
Yeah.
Did you feel like the training, looking back, prepared you for what you're getting into?
You mean in the war?
Yes.
Oh, yes. The thing is, I enjoyed it because, yes, I was in the State Guard for 7 months or 9 months before I got drafted, and I went to Camp Drum with the Mohawk unit, and I enjoyed that very much. The training and everything, I just enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being in the service, except until I got wounded. So matter of fact, I would have stayed in, I think, if I didn't get wounded. That's how much I enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah.
When were you shipped to Europe? Did you go to England, I'm imagining?
Yes. I was held back from my unit in Spartansburg because they overlooked me and having prescription glasses for my gas masks, which, thank God, I never used. So I didn't go in my unit. So I left later and went home, and then was assigned to go to Boston, Massachusetts, and then from there I left, I think it was May 8th, to go to England. And it took us about 2 weeks to get there. We had a convoy, and we were sinking U-boats on the way, and I arrived in England, I think it was around the 15th of May.
Do you happen to remember the name of your transport ship?
No, I do not.
How many men were on board?
Oh, I don't know that either. There was probably thousands because it was a big ship shipping replacements. That's what it was, to go over there and replace all those other soldiers that were wounded.
Now, I understand you were a member of the Big Red 1.
Yes, I was.
Now, that's one of the most storied
Famous
divisions in the Army.
Yes, it is. And I didn't know that at the time, but I found out later. And the thing is, when I got over there, I didn't know who I was going to get assigned to because that I didn't finish the communication, so I wound up as a rifleman with the Big Red 1, and I spent my 19th birthday, which was May 30th, in the compound, and they wouldn't let you out or go anywhere until it was time to be shipped out, which was June 6th or 5th. Yeah. So I was just in there until it was time to make the invasion.
Now, how much prior knowledge of the invasion did you actually have?
None.
So you just knew you were getting ready to
I didn't know where I was
invade.
going or any. I just joined this division, and I didn't know anything about the Red One until later. And I was just there for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden I realized that we're going to make an invasion in France, but I didn't know where either till afterwards.
Any lasting impressions of the camp in England or England itself?
Well, not at that time, because when you were confined to the compound for 2 weeks and you couldn't go anywhere, I didn't know much about England. I did later, because when I got wounded the first time, I went to England, and I had a chance to look around a little bit, and then I went back to Germany, the second time, because I was wounded twice. Yes. So.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
June 5th, 1944.
Ooh, I was loading up on a big ship, and I don't even know the name of that. But I can remember going to the docks with the rest of them and getting on the ship and waiting for that day. And the only thing I can remember is before the invasion is climbing down these rope ladders, or whatever you want to call them, on the side of the ship to get into these U-boats, or these little, whatever you call those boats that take you to the shore.
LCDs?
Huh?
LCDs?
Yes, and that was a sad thing too, that I can remember reports I heard later that the one that was driving these things were scared, and they didn't get in close enough, and they opened the doors and allowed them to drown even before they got to the beach. And thank God when they opened the door for let us out, I went up to about here, and I at that time was carrying the bazooka rounds, and they were this long, and there's 4 in a package. I carried them on the beach, and it was too much for me, and I got rid of them because we were pinned down. We couldn't move, couldn't go nowhere.
What was the mood of the men on the boat as you were heading towards shore? I mean, it was 6
Silence.
o'clock, so you were first wave.
Yes, it must have been around the first wave. I thought it was later, but I couldn't have been first wave because we got pinned down on the beach, and I don't remember any talk or anything. I think, as far as I know, I think it was very silent.
Did they give you any special instructions as to what to do when you got there?
Not that I remember. Just just when they opened it, get on the beach as soon as you can. And there was no cover. There's nothing to hide behind. There you were on the beach, and I don't know. I can't remember exactly if it was the captain or the colonel. He says after we've been there quite a while, and a lot of them getting wounded and killed. He says, "Are we going to stay here and die, or are we going to go forward?" And so they said, "Let's go," and we went forward. And in other words, we made it. So the different beaches we had different obstacles to go over, but we did conquer, or that area where we were.
Now, while you were pinned down there on the beach,
Yeah.
what was going through your mind?
Well, right now I can't remember nothing that ever was coming through my mind at that time. I know when he said go forward, and we started advancing forward, and we hit the ground and get up, and hit the ground and get up. And one time I can remember that the bullets were so close that it shot a hole through my canteen. So that was pretty close. And so, and also being a greenhorn, I tried to help those who were wounded, and the ones in charge, the Sergeant Hoover, was, "Leave them alone." He says, "There'll be somebody else to take care of them." So I learned that experience, that if anybody gets wounded, somebody else will take care of them. So we went on forward into France, and there was no foxholes, in France. It was all hedgerows.
Okay.
You had trees on each side and a little gully, and theirs was your foxhole. And so we were, this was July 28th. I mean, we were in these hedgerows, and the German tanks were out there, and they were shooting at us. And one of their bombs landed in our trench and wounded 7 of us. And I was at least wounded. And there was 5 others that said we can walk back, and so they walked back to the closest they could get to the medics and to the hospital. And they said they would send somebody, because there was one young man that got wounded in the leg very bad, and he started bleeding, and he says to me, "Can you help me?" And I says, "Yes." So I put him on my back and I carried him, because I was only wounded in my left hand, nothing serious. And so I carried him back, and about halfway there, I met the medics and the stretchers. They took him, and they said to me, "How about you?" "Oh," I said, "I just got a little shrapnel in my left hand. I'll make it." And he said, "Well, look, you're this far. Why don't you come the rest of the way?" Well, it's a good thing I did, or I would have lost my arm, because the shrapnel was rusted, and I was the last one to get waited on, because there was so many, well, I don't know how many hundreds or whatever it was, to take care of. They were wounded, a lot worse than I was. And so when they finally got to me, my whole arm ached. And they said, "It's a good thing you came. If you'd waited longer, and who knows how much longer, you probably would have lost your arm." So it was, I helped somebody else, and I got to save my arm.
Helped you at the same time.
Yes.
Did you feel the treatment that they gave the wounded men was well done?
As far as I know, the best that they could do, yes. There was no, they took care of the worst wounded first, and then they got down to, the ones that were slightly wounded like me, and they took care of us. And matter of fact, they didn't even ship me back to England, which I didn't expect, you see, because I wasn't that bad, but they shipped me back to England, and I was there for a while. And then when I was ready, well, they shipped me back to my unit, but they were in Germany at that time.
2 questions.
Yes.
To kind of go back over the ground you just
Yes.
traveled.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you actually saw the enemy? And what your thinking
Oh,
was?
boy, let's see. I could say, we were on the beach, and they had these great big concrete pillars in front of us, and there was soldiers in there with machine guns, or and you could see the helmets of them, and that's the closest I got to see them at that time. Yeah. And I did later on. I'm sorry. Later on, we were advancing forward to this village, and I wound up with a bazooka. Instead of carrying the ammunition, I wound up with a bazooka, and I saw a German in a window, on the second story, and I fired and hit him. So that's about as close as I got in France.
And second,
We almost, let me say this, while we were advancing, you see, it was July 28th when I got wounded. It was on my brother's birthday. Our captain got killed, and so they put a lieutenant in charge, which was a greenhorn, and he advanced so much forward that we were surrounded by the Germans. And so the sergeant, or master sergeant, whoever was in charge, then he says, "I'm sorry, but we're getting out of here, because we're going to get captured." So he took over the command, and we backed out of there, and which was just a few seconds. He said that we would have all been captured, and I remember that very clearly. And then we got back to where we were supposed to be, and then we advanced forward, and then I got wounded.
did the lieutenant reprimand the sergeant, or was he
No,
grateful to him?
No, he was a greenhorn. He was willing to obey, because this sergeant was in Africa. I mean, he'd been around for quite a while, and so he just took over. And I don't remember the lieutenant saying anything. I mean, he was so glad, I guess, that let somebody else that knows what they're doing, take over, and which I'm glad he did, because we would have always been captured. So.
From what I've read,
Yeah.
moving through France through those hedgerows in
Yes.
Normandy
Yes.
was about as tough and vicious going as the American Army ever got into.
Yeah, because they couldn't get in a trench and get really protection, because here you are really in the open. I mean, those trees are not going to stop shells. They're not going to stop bullets. So really, it wasn't too good. Yeah. So.
And
Well, see, I went from Normandy to, where, I don't know if anybody knows where Harve,
Yes.
but that's part of the sticking out here of France, and we got almost there, and then I got wounded, and the rest of them, after they went so far, turned around and started going toward Germany. But like I say, to 28th of July, I was wounded, so I shipped to England, and then I came back, and when I came back, my company was already in Germany. Yeah, they had passed the Siegfried line. You probably heard about that, all those concrete
Yes.
pillars things. And when I returned to my outfit, I saw all those, because they were just on the other side of that secret plane.
Wow. Oh, technical question. Were
Yeah.
you pleased with your equipment? You mentioned using the bazooka. I know
Yeah.
early in the war they sometimes had a problem making them fire. Worked well when you used it?
Well, I only used it once at that time, and when I joined my outfit, I was like assistant squad leader, because the other ones had all been wounded or killed. There was only one left, and that was the sergeant that was in charge. Him and I that were at Normandy, and he was the only one left. And so when I came back, he made me a buck sergeant, or the assistant, which I never got. They put me in, but I never got it. Well, let's see. I had a machine gun, kind of to carry in your hand. I didn't like it. It was too heavy. I gave it to somebody else.
Is that the Thompson?
Yeah, and I just took a regular rifle. I said that was enough for me. So,
And the rifle was the Grand,
and one,
the M1?
yeah.
Did you have a man with a BAR?
Yes, that's what I meant. That's what I was.
Oh,
guy
your
was-
BAR was too heavy?
VAR was too heavy for me. I said, I don't want it. And I gave it to somebody else. It was some crazy guy. I forgot his name now. He took that thing and went out alone and went out and killed some Germans and captured some and brought them back. I remember that very clearly. And he was crazy. I mean, but I didn't want anything to do with the VAR. I was happy with a rifle. So, yeah, it was a VAR. It was for me, not for me.
What happened to the crazy guy?
Well, as far as I know, he's still living when I got buried alive, in Germany. He was still going.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to talk about that next, if you're
Yeah.
ready, about
I am.
being wounded, in this
Yeah.
case, once and then again.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, please.
I joined my outfit exactly, I don't know where, but they were advancing forward, and they were going to be on top of a mountain for an observation for artillery. And we were all, our company at least, were stuck up on this mountain. Before then, I remember when we were advancing, and we advanced one time at night, and so the Germans wouldn't know where we were or what we were doing. Instead of walking in the snow, we walked in the riverbed in the wintertime. Now, I don't know how many hours we walked and walked and walked, and we finally got what they call the Hürden Forest, the Black Forest.
Yeah.
It's so black you can't see daylight except for the sides, with it on the outside. The outside, that's the only was. And you couldn't dig a hole because it was frozen. So we laid there, and it was very, very sad, because the next morning, only by the grace of God, I guess, that I didn't freeze to death, but many froze to death. And a lot of them, which I saw later when I went back to England the second time, when I was for this nervous problem I had, I saw some of these men that were with me with their legs or with their feet cut off because they were frozen. And that really touched me. It really hurt me, because I said, well, why not me? I mean, why was my feet frozen and cut off? Well, I knew later why, because God had a call upon my life, but I didn't know that then. Well, so then we advanced and got out of these woods, and we got up on the top of this mountain. And I don't know why, but it seems like the ground was different, or because it wasn't in the woods, we could dig a hole. And so we were there quite a while. First time was a single hole, and he started digging, and I had a replacement that I was in charge of. He just came. Now listen, things got so bad toward the end of the war, they were calling people from Panama that were down there for Army occupation. The replacement I had didn't have no trigger finger. That's how bad things got toward the end of the war, the replacements. So he was with me, and I was going to take charge of him because of, I knew what to do. So I says, well, dig your hole, and he started digging, and I dug mine over here, and it was raining, and so naturally the trench started getting some water, and I heard these bombs coming, shells. I said, hit it. He said, I'm not going to hit that with the water in there. Well, I did. I hit it. I knew better, you know. I knew that you can't stick your head up there. So after it was all over, then I got up. He didn't make it. He stood up and got it right through the head. And I felt bad about that, and I lost my mind. I lost control, and I was going around crazy because I blamed myself. And the sergeant came up to me and slapped me in my face, and it brought me out of it. And then I carried on from there. Well, then they said that everybody from now on is going to have double foxhole, and why I do not know to this day. Double foxhole, and you're going to cover it up. And I don't know how we covered it up, but we covered up every foxhole because they were showing us for protection. Well, I don't know how many days we were up there, but anyway, I heard a noise one night because we were in our holes at nighttime. You don't get out of your holes at nighttime. And so I heard a noise, and I asked who's there or halt or whatever it was, and nobody answered. And so at the area that I heard the noise, I just kind of fired my rifle, just kind of like this, you know. And next morning we got up, and where we thought that I heard the voice, there was some blood. So I hit somebody, and I'm pretty sure it was Germans setting up a machine gun to wipe us out. But all the evidence was the blood. And anyway, one night we were in our foxhole, and this is another young man, a replacement. It was with me, and during the night the shells were so bad that the bomb landed directly in our hole, and it was a big bomb, they said, from the railroad guns, and it completely buried us. Well, it was time to move out the next day, and so they said they went by my hole 3 times, and the 3rd time they went by, they heard a groan, and I didn't know that because I was unconscious. And when the sergeant, the one that I told you about, him and I were together in Normandy, or in invasion at
Yes.
Normandy, when he said that I was buried alive, he blew the stack because I was the only one left, you see. And he went and crazy, and he shipped him to England. So anyway, they heard the groan, and they dug us out, and I was unconscious, and the man in the hole with me died, was killed. Now, I didn't know why then either, but now I know why. But anyway, I was in a hospital for at least 3 weeks in, I think it was France, Paris, France, for 3 weeks. Couldn't talk, couldn't walk, couldn't hardly do anything, couldn't eat, go to bed. I mean, I was just useless for about 3 weeks. I was unconscious for 3 days, excuse me. I was unconscious for 3 days, and for 3 weeks I was just useless. I couldn't do anything. Well, so finally they sent me to another hospital, and I thought, having this nervous condition, that they would ship me back home. Well, they didn't, and I was very disappointed. And instead of shipping me back home, because they shipped me to England, and I was there, and they shipped me back to Belgium, for Antwerp, Belgium, or Holland, excuse me, I think it's Holland, for Army occupation. Well, they were still dropping buzz bombs on Antwerp. Well, I was on guard duty, and I froze at nighttime. This was nighttime, and I froze. And I was there all night long in that position. I couldn't move. So they finally came to replace me, and then they put me on different duties. And finally, when they put me in a hospital and took care of me, and finally shipped me back to England, and I finally got home. But I thought I was going to be sent right home, but it didn't. I had to wind up with this railroad company. Can you imagine? Hear me with a bad back. That's another thing that happened to me when I got buried alive. Not only was it my nervous condition, my nerves, but also I had trouble with my back, with sacroiliac, which I still do. I still have back problems with my back. So I thought, well, they'd send me back to the States, but they didn't. But anyway, I got back, and I was in Long Island at the hospital there. And then from there I got discharged, a medical discharge.
Do you remember the date?
That I got discharged?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the day that I got wounded, let's go back to there. I think it was November 17th, 1944. And then when I got discharged, I think it was November 18th, 1945. So I was about 2 years and 2 months or whatever in the service, but, you know.
Oh. Well, sir, you have definitely seen more than your share of World War II.
Yes.
That Battle of Wergen Forest
Yes.
was a slaughterhouse that in some ways got overlooked because it led right into the Battle of Bulge that kind of stole the attention.
Yeah.
But that was
I missed that because, see, that was in December, and I was in, when I got wounded was in November, so at least I wasn't in the Battle of the Bulge, but I was in England with nervous condition, which I had for 17 years. After I got discharged, they finally decided that I was all right to be discharged, and they said, excuse me, but he said, you need to go back home where there's love and they can take care of you and recuperate. And I just smiled. I said, well, I wouldn't receive that in my house because my father was an alcoholic and there was no love there. But anyway, I had many spells of nervous conditions and I wanted to get rid of myself. I wanted to kill myself. I almost killed my dad one time in the bathroom when my two brothers and mother grabbed me because I had one of these, nervous attacks and I was no control. And so I was going to doctors and I was taking pills and so finally I was in construction business and with my dad building houses, but they had a recession in 1940 something. They had a recession in Ilion and Rand and all that, and they laid off thousands of people. And we had two houses we built and we couldn't sell them, so I was kind of shook up by that, and I thought I was going to lose everything, my house and everything, so I had a nervous breakdown. And they sent me to, instead of going to the hospital, they sent me to a doctor in Little Falls, which was a psychiatrist. And I was going to him for at least probably a year. Started out every week and then every month, And so I was going to him for quite a while, and with the pills, let's say, I was getting better, yeah, but with the pills, the pills lift you up and they calm you down, and it was a battle. It's not good. So from there, if you wanted me to continue the change of my life after that.
Before we go there,
yeah, I thought maybe you might have another question.
A couple things. You'd mentioned the sergeant that you were so close with.
Yes,
and
his name was Al. I know Al Lowenthal. He was a Jewish boy, and him and I were so close because, well, hey, if you start out with a war with a guy in Normandy and wind up with him in Germany, because see, when I came back for replacement, we greeted each other and we were glad to see each other, and then that's when the master sergeant or whoever put me as assistant squad leader to him, and so we were so close, and so when this happened to me, let me say something. This is a miracle. When he sent him back to England, and he recuperated, okay, and then he sent me back to England, and we were in this kind of a replacement where we shipped you to this place and then you ship me back either home or here or there. It's kind of a replacement. Send people different places.
What they call them, repo depots or something like that?
Yes, thank you. And I'm there, and I'm walking down this great, big, wide, well, it wasn't a street, it was just a big area wide. I'm walking down there for I don't know what reason or where I was going. And all of a sudden, I look up, and I see the sergeant.
Wow.
When he saw me, we got so close, he just ran and grabbed me, and he was so happy. And at that time, as far as I know, he recuperated from his shock, or that he kind of went out. But it was just a miracle that I saw him at that time, and I never saw him again.
At least you saw him then.
Yeah, I never saw him. Yeah.
Were there any other men like the sergeant that left a very strong impression?
Let's see.
Other people
They
you
weren't.
served with?
I was. The only time, like I say, was when I was in the hospital, and I had a nervous breakdown in Antwerp. I was in the hospital there, and there was a young man there. I don't know why he was there, but his name was Rick Mason, and he took care of me because I had a headache so bad I put my fist through the wall. I guess they call them migraines now. And he just kind of took me over and helped me, and I couldn't talk. I was stuttering. I couldn't write. I guess I don't know if I ate very much, but I know when I got this concussion, which happened to me, when I was buried alive, I lost a lot of weight. I was 175 when I was in service, and I went down to 157. And so I didn't have much weight on me, but he helped me in any way he could to continue in the hospital. And so,
Physically and mentally?
yes, he was a very good friend of mine, and really helped me. So I appreciate it very much.
Would you say that the officers that were in charge, whether it was the lieutenant and the captain in your own unit, or were you part of Bradley's Third Army, or excuse me, Patton's Third Army, or Bradley?
No, it was Bradley's. The first
Bradley.
division was part of Bradley's.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Well, I thought it was quite an honor, later on when I found out about the Red One, the first division, that I would be part of it because they were famous from World War I, and also they were in Africa, and they were in Italy, and they were all these different countries fighting, and to be part of that, I thought it was quite a privilege.
Let's see. Do you remember VE Day or VJ Day? I know you were recovering at that time.
Oh, yes, you mean May?
One was May, the other one September.
Yeah. Where was I? May 7th, when the war was ended in Germany. Was that in 45 or?
Yes.
Well, where was I then? I must have still been in the service. I didn't get out until November 45.
Would you have been in Long Island then, the
Yes,
hospital there?
I probably was there because I went from England to Long Island to the hospital there and had treatment, and that's probably where I was. And I don't remember now because I was getting treated for a nervous condition, and I wasn't myself. You're going, I was on pills and doped up, and so I don't remember too much about that. That the war was over in Germany.
Okay.
Well, let's see, Japan, yes, I was out of the service, I think. I don't know where I was, and I don't have too much recollection about it.
Okay. Before we started
Yeah.
taping, we'd mentioned also the medals that you received, and I know you got Purple
Yeah.
Hearts,
Yes,
UN
twice.
citations.
Yes, and good conduct, and I don't know how many, a couple others, but like I say, I don't have my discharge with me, so I can't remember all the different citations and medals. I think there was 3 or 4 citations. You get a little pin, it's blue, and they put stars on it for each battle that you're in. I think it was 4 I find, and other ones I can't remember right now.
Well, certainly Normandy, the Werken Forest.
Yes.
Those ought to be big,
Right. Yes.
big
Right.
medals for those.
Yes.
As you look back on your experience in the war itself,
Mm-hmm.
anything that would you most interesting, most unusual, or inspiring,
Inspiring.
or unusual, interesting, anything?
I don't know, I think I was still in France, and I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I can remember quoting Psalm 23. Although I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. And I didn't know what I was repeating because I didn't know the Bible. But I did remember saying that. And I guess God had his hand upon me because there's so many different times I could have been killed, but I came through it all. trying to think of some other circumstances, other conditions that I went through. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. I can't think of anything right now. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Now, as you look back on the meaning of all of this, any lasting statements that you'd like to offer? Any perspective that you'd like to give?
Well, just let me say this. I was a very young man. I'm 19 years old. And when I made the invasion of Normandy, at Omaha Beach with the 1st Division, I was scared to death. It was an experience I'll never forget. As far as I'm concerned, to express it, I would have to say it was worse than hell itself. It was terrible. When you hear different ones screaming because of being wounded or people getting killed on each side of you, it's an experience you never forget. I've always wanted to go back to Normandy. I never had the opportunity or money to go back when they had these celebrations every year or whatever, you know. But I want to say that one time our pastor went to Russia, and then on the way back he went through France, and I don't know why he got in the area where I was, but he went back to Normandy, and he picked up some stones for me, pebbles, and brought them back to me. So that's the closest I ever got to going back to Normandy. I made a train ride twice. I was in Spain ministering, and I made a train ride twice going through France, but I never got to stop to go to the area where I was.
From what I've seen, not only have our veterans, but the French
Yeah.
have done an excellent job
Yes.
of commemorating and sanctifying that beach
Yes.
and the areas around it.
I would probably someday I'd like to see it, but you know, who knows if I ever get the opportunity.
I've made that same promise to myself.
Yeah.
It's one of those places.
Well, they are finally making a memorial in Washington, D.C. for World War II veterans, or all the European veterans that I've been waiting for years and years and years to do. So.
And they also have one in Bedford, Virginia, specifically for D-Day.
Really? Just for
Veterans,
D-Day?
just for D-Day.
Well, then I got to pray about going there someday, because I do have friends in Virginia, and maybe I'll get to go there. I've heard about that. As a matter of fact, I saw a picture in the paper about statues and
Yes.
different things that happened. You know. Yeah. Quite experience.
In your life
Yeah.
since World War II,
Yes.
what would you like to tell us about that?
Well, I suffered for 17 years of a nervous condition. Off and on, not continually, because I had to work in construction work. I was in construction with my dad, building houses and doing all kinds of remodeling. I loved it. I loved to work with my hands. But then every once in a while, if something would happen or cause me, I would have a spell or whatever, why then I'd have to take some pills to help me, calm me down, or pick me up or whatever. But anyway, I was in this condition for 17 years. By the grace of God, through the sickness of one of our children, babies, he was only a year old, and we found out he had leukemia. Through his sickness, my wife came back to the Lord, and through his death, I came to the Lord, and found out that I needed to change my life. You see, when I was in the world, I was involved in everything that possible. I was in the American Legion. I was vice commander. I was chairman of this, chairman of that. I was always out and never home. And also I was the head of the Noble Grand of the Odd Fellows. I was involved in a lot of different things, heart funds, you name it, I was in it. But it wasn't good for my marriage. So one day when I realized that if I didn't change, I wouldn't be married very long. So one day when I went to church with my wife, and The pastor says he didn't even preach a salvation message, but he says, anybody need a change in their life, the Lord can do it. Well, I certainly did need a change in my life because I was going down the drain, and our marriage was going down the drain. Anyway, I came forward and I gave my life to the Lord, and He also filled me with His power to overcome and to serve Him. And also my wife had a nervous condition, and the Lord also touched her and healed her of her nervous condition. One day, the pastor, or the visitor that was visiting as pastor, and the elders came to our house because the baby had passed away of leukemia at 15 months old, and wanted to know how we were continuing and how we were doing. I was a new Christian. I got saved on December 18th. And they came over to talk to us and see how we're doing, and then they found out that I had this problem with my nervous condition for all these years. And so they just asked me, do you believe that God can heal you or touch you? I said, yes. I've been reading some magazines from this evangelist, and I believe God can do the same thing in these days, now with me. Anyway, they prayed for me and laid their hands on me, and instantly I felt the power of God go through me, and God instantly healed me of the nervous conditions I had for 17 years. Well, I was so grateful, and my wife was so grateful that what He had done for us, that we prayed about it, and I was still in business. I was in construction business. Matter of fact, I was in my own construction business at the time. And we were so grateful, we wanted to do more than we could for the Lord. So we prayed about it, and we got direction to go to Waco, Texas, which is a training program. Instead of going to Bible school, this church had a training program to go into any ministry that the Lord had for you. I didn't know what mine was going to be when I left New York, but I went there and sold my business, sold our house and everything, and by faith we just moved down to Waco, Texas, and I was there for training. But during that training, the church had trips that they made to Mexico, and during one of these conventions that they had, they invited anyone who would like to go to Mexico. Well, I thought that would be a great idea. Go to Mexico and see this country and that city in different parts. So I went. 3 carloads of us went. Sleeping on benches, floors, whatever. We traveled 5,000 miles in 3 weeks. But at that time, the Lord kind of touched my heart that maybe someday I would be going back to Mexico. But I went to Waco not only for training, but I also wound up doing construction work for the church because they had bought a new campground, or a campground, the Methodist campground. It was 50 years without no work. So I was working there, and then I'd make trips when I finished a job, and I'd go to Mexico and then come back, and I'd go to Mexico and come back. And then one time I went, and the Lord spoke to me that He wanted us to go back and be missionaries. So I came back, and the Lord had already spoken to my wife that we were going to go. And so we agreed together, and we didn't go right away because I still had work to do, construction, to finish the work I did on the campground. But we went, and we, by the grace of God, have been missionaries for over 35 years. So I thank God for changing my life and giving me hope and a desire to help others. And I just thank God for the opportunity that we have, and we still are going on. I'm 77 years old. People think it's time to retire. But my wife and I have agreed already, and we've talked about it, that we're still going to go on as long as we can. And we've had word of prophecy. Some people don't understand that, but it's when God speaks to you directly. And He still wants us to continue, but not travel as much as we used to, because we used to travel a lot. Well, for over 35 years, our life has been travel. We did live in Mexico for 21 years, and raised up churches and raised up national workers, and then the Lord gave us a call to go to other countries. So we moved out to Irving, Texas, where our church is, Living Word Church is there, and we work out of that church, and we go to other countries now. We've been to Spain and other different countries, but the Lord says, you're not going to travel as much. It's time to settle down. So I believe in my heart that we've had counsel, we've had talk with different ones to make sure this is the Lord. And we believe that we would be established someday and be working in a Bible school. And it said that I would be a father to those of this generation that needs to grow up and know the Lord and serve Him. So I believe the Lord still has work for us, and I'm really grateful that I still have my health, that I can serve Him and do what He wants me to do. And I just appreciate what the Lord has done for my wife and I and changed our lives. And all our children, we have 4 children, and the oldest is 46, but he's a professor in literature, English literature, in the University of Oklahoma. But he's right now not serving the Lord. But other 3 children that we have, Bill and Joanne and Daleen, are serving the Lord, and they also have a ministry of music, and I appreciate that also. So the Lord has been good to us, and we still come up here. The reason we're here up here in this area because we used to live here, but we have churches that support us, and we go every weekend and we visit and minister the Word of God, and we thank the Lord for being with us and helping us all these years.
Well, Reverend, I definitely thank you for sharing an amazing story, a life story.
Well,
thank you.
It's the Lord, and He does those things today, and He changes people's lives and gives them a hope, and they carry on and be a benefit to the people, you know, in the church or outside the church, and I just thank God for that. I think that, to me, I think the best calling that you can have upon your life is to serve the Lord, especially as a missionary. I think that's a special call.
And you heard it.
And I heard it, yes.
Okay, sir. Are you all set?
I'm fine, thank you.
I thank you.
I thank you for the privilege of being able to share my life and how God changed it.
And it's an honor
Thank
to
you.
be able to hear your story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.